The challenge before the Council. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was a place designed to humble. Its ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into artificial twilight. Columns of crystallized starlight rose from the floor like frozen lightning. The air itself hummed with translated voices, 73 species each speaking in their native tongue, yet all perfectly understood through quantum resonance fields that rippled across the vast circular hall. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Ju Park of Earth. She was alone. Behind her, no fleet waited. No army stood ready. No ancient lineage of starfaring ancestors whispered advice into her ear. She wore a simple black suit, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, and her hands clasped calmly behind her back. She looked small beneath the towering podium where the council sat. Dozens of alien forms, some towering, some floating, some barely visible in dimensions humans couldn't fully perceive, and they were laughing, not all of them, not openly, but Ju could see it in the flicker of their secondary eyes, in the ripple of chromatophores across scaled skin, in the way certain delegates leaned toward one another and made sounds that didn't need translation. She had expected this. Councillor Vrak of the Gentari Dominion was the first to speak. His voice boomed across the chamber, deep and resonant like stone grinding against stone. He was massive, 4 meters tall, his carapace dark as oil, his 6 limbs ending in claws that could crush steel. His people had ruled 17 star systems for 6,000 years. You stand before us, Vrak said slowly, and ask for a seat among the eldest powers of this galaxy. You whose species has not even left your own solar neighborhood. You who wage war upon yourselves more than any external threat. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ju did not flinch. We have left our solar system, she replied calmly. We have colonies on colonies. The interruption came from Councillor Sirith, a floating jellyfish-like being whose translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent anger. You call 3 mining outposts and a research station colonies? My people had 10 worlds before we even discovered faster-than-light travel. More laughter. Louder this time. Ju's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. We are young. We do not deny this. But youth is not weakness, and we have earned the right to be heard. Earned? Vrak leaned forward, his claws clicking against the stone of his seat. What have you earned, human? What have you done that we have not seen 1,000 times before? Every species that comes before this council believes themselves special, believes themselves worthy. But worthiness is not claimed, it is proven. The chamber fell silent. Jo felt the weight of 100 alien gazes pressing down on her. Some curious, some contemptuous, some simply indifferent, as if she were an insect that had wandered into a hall of giants. She took a breath. Then let us prove it. Vrak's eyes, all 6 of them, narrowed. You wish to demonstrate your strength? He rumbled. Yes. And how do you propose to do that, Ambassador Park? Sirith's voice was mocking now, almost playful. Will you show us your primitive railguns? Your chemical rockets? Perhaps you will threaten us with your, what do you call them, nuclear warheads? The chamber erupted in laughter again. Even some of the more reserved species allowed themselves a quiet chuckle. Jo waited for the noise to die down. Then she spoke, and her voice carried across the hall like a blade cutting through silk. We will show you the UNS Colossus. Silence. Not the thoughtful kind, the confused kind. Councillor Vrak tilted his enormous head. We are unfamiliar with this name. You would be, Ju said quietly. We built her in secret. 30 years of construction, 50,000 crew, 15 kilometers from bow to stern. The laughter had stopped now. A few delegates exchanged glances. Others checked their personal data streams, searching for records of this vessel. There were none. You expect us to believe, Sirith said slowly, that your species, barely 2 centuries into space, has constructed a warship 15 kilometers long? I do not expect you to believe anything, Councillor, Ju replied. I expect you to see it for yourselves. Vrak leaned back in his seat, his claws drumming a slow rhythm against stone. For the first time since the session began, he was not smiling. Very well, Ambassador Park, he said. You wish to prove humanity's strength? Then bring your ship here. Bring this Colossus to Veltura's Prime. Let the Council see what humanity has built. He gestured toward the star maps projected above the chamber, a glittering web of trade routes, defense lines, and monitored borders. You have one standard cycle, Vrek continued. 30 days. If your ship arrives, if it is what you claim, then we will reconsider humanity's petition. His 6 eyes gleamed. But if you fail, if this is a bluff, a desperate lie from a desperate species, then Earth will be marked. Marked as unworthy, marked as a cautionary tale, and you will never be invited to stand before this council again. Ju Park met his gaze without fear. We will not fail. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing across the silent chamber. Behind her, the council watched, some with curiosity, some with doubt. And one, an old scarred delegate from a species long thought extinct, watched with something else entirely: recognition. Awakening the Titan. The Kuiper Belt was a graveyard of ice and stone. Out here, beyond Neptune's orbit, the sun was nothing more than a bright star among millions. No planets turned. No moons sang their gravitational songs. There was only the cold, the dark, and the silence of deep space, a silence that had lasted 4 billion years, until 30 years ago. That was when humanity had begun building something that should not exist. Shipyard Garrison Omega 7. Kuiper Belt, 48 AU from Sol Day 0, Captain Day 1. Kim stood on the observation deck of the garrison station and stared out at the ship that would carry humanity's future. The UNS Colossus hung in the void like a sleeping god, 15 kilometers long. 3 kilometers wide at her widest point. Her hull was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, studded with sensor arrays, weapon emplacements, and launch bays that could swallow frigates whole. She had been constructed in sections over 3 decades, built in secret, funded through black budgets and off-book allocations, her very existence known only to a handful of admirals, engineers, and political leaders who understood what was coming, the day when humanity would no longer be ignored. Daewon was 52 years old. He had served in the Unification Wars, commanded destroyers during the Outer Colony rebellions, and spent the last 8 years overseeing the final assembly of this monster. He knew every deck, every bulkhead, every system, and he knew what she could do. Captain. He turned. Commander Elena Vasquez stood behind him, datapad in hand, her expression calm but urgent. She was his XO, executive officer, and had been with him since the Colossus was nothing but blueprints and political arguments. Status? Daewon asked. All sections report ready, Vasquez said. Engineering has the reactors at standby power. Weapon systems are green across the board. Life support is nominal for full crew capacity. And the crew? 50,000 souls aboard, sir. Every station manned. Every department checked in. She paused. They're ready. Daewon nodded slowly. 50,000 people. Soldiers, engineers, pilots, medics, scientists. Humanity's best, drawn from every nation, every colony, every corner of human space. They had trained for this moment. Some for years. Some for their entire careers. None of them had ever seen the Colossus move. Orders from Earth? Daewon asked. Vasquez tapped her datapad. Came through encrypted burst transmission 6 hours ago. Admiral Chen sends her regards. She looked up. We are authorized to proceed to Vel Taurus Prime. Full military honors. Rules of engagement, defensive only unless directly provoked. Defensive only, Daewon repeated, a faint smile crossing his face. Against a Galactic Council that thinks we're primitives with railguns. Yes, sir. He turned back to the viewport, his reflection ghosting across the glass. Beyond it, the Colossus waited in perfect stillness, her running lights dark, her engines cold. For 30 years, she had been a secret. Now she would be a statement. Signal all hands, Daewon said quietly. Prepare for departure. Engineering Bay 12 Alpha deep within the Colossus chief engineer Marcus. Okafor stood before the primary reactor core and felt the ship's heartbeat begin. The core was a marvel, a fusion antimatter hybrid system that could generate enough power to light up a small moon. It was also technically untested at full operational capacity. Oh, they'd run simulations, thousands of them. But simulations were just math and hope. This was real. Reactor 1 coming online, his assistant called out from the control station. Temperature rising. Magnetic containment stable. Marcus watched the readouts. The numbers climbed. Slowly. Steadily. The core's inner chamber glowed a deep, angry red, then shifted to white-hot brilliance as the fusion reaction ignited. Reactor 1 online, he confirmed. Output at 40% and climbing. Reactor 2 initiating, another voice reported. One by one, the 8 fusion cores that powered the Colossus roared to life. The deck beneath Marcus's boots began to hum, a low, almost subsonic vibration that traveled through the entire ship. It was the sound of power, raw, immense, unstoppable power. All reactors online, Chief, his assistant said, a note of awe in his voice. We're at 92% capacity. All systems green. Marcus allowed himself a breath. She's alive, and she was. For the first time in 3 decades, the UNS Colossus was awake. Command bridge forward section. Deck 1, the bridge of the Colossus, was not like the bridges of smaller ships. It was a cathedral of steel and light. Holographic displays floated in mid-air, showing real-time data from every section of the ship. Crew stations ringed the central command platform in tiers, each manned by specialists who controlled navigation, weapons, communications, sensors, and 100 other critical systems. At the center of it all, Captain Daewon Kim sat in the command chair and felt the ship respond to his presence. All stations report ready. Captain, Vasquez said from her position at his right. Navigation? Daewon asked. Course plotted for Veltour's Prime, sir. Lieutenant Park, no relation to the ambassador, replied from the helm. 32 light years. 3 jumps through hyperspace. Estimated travel time 28 days. Weapons? All batteries online and ready. Commander Rahim, the tactical officer, reported. Railgun arrays charged. Missile tubes loaded. Point defense grid active. We are combat ready, Captain. Daewon nodded. Communications signal the garrison. Tell them we're departing on schedule. Aye, sir. He stood, his hands clasped behind his back, and looked out through the forward viewports at the endless dark. Somewhere out there, 32 light years away, the Galactic Council was waiting, expecting either nothing or something small and laughable. They would get neither. Helm, Daewon said, his voice calm but carrying across the bridge. Disengage docking clamps. Bring us about. Engines to 1/4 thrust. Aye, sir. Disengaging clamps. A shudder ran through the ship, a gentle, almost tender motion as the magnetic locks that had held the Colossus in place for 3 decades released. For the first time, she was free. Engines responding, Lieutenant Park said. Thrusters online. We are mobile, Captain. Daewon allowed himself a small smile. Then, let's show them what we've built. He sat back down in the command chair and gave the order that would change everything. Take us to hyperspace. Exterior view. The Kuiper belt the UNS Colossus moved, slowly at first, a mountain of metal and fire drifting through the ice fields of the outer system. Her engines flared to life, blue-white plasma exhaust cutting through the dark like the breath of a sleeping dragon waking. She turned, ponderous, inevitable. And then, as her hyperspace generators spun up, reality itself began to bend. Space folded, light twisted, and in a flash of silent, terrible beauty, the Titan vanished.